Hello and welcome to Feedback for the week of November 16th, the kind of the final week in terms of getting those major releases. You know, Assassin's Creed 2 and Left 4 Dead 2 are released. We got a little bit more coming up, but that swamp.
We're done.
Thank God.
That tsunami.
Thank God.
And then it starts again on the 5th of
Way to
January. Yay!
Good job, everyone.
Also, this has been a week that has some news in terms of results of Modern Warfare. We'll get to that in 1 second. I want to introduce our wonderful panel of panelists. We have Patrick Klepek.
Hello.
Andrew Pfister.
I'm here to panelize.
Yes, and Abby Happy.
Hi.
Panel as a verb. And, you know, we're going to change the English language from this small
That's
radio
how
booth.
powerful we are.
I'm going to panel the hell out of this show.
So let's get to it because we do have quite a bit of stuff. And this first piece really is from this morning. You know, kind of, we already knew Modern Warfare was doing well from their first 24 hours. It may have tapered off a little bit, but it's an amazing amount of games sold.
Yeah, I mean, Activision released the number being that Modern Warfare 2 produced $550 million in its first 5 days, beating the last industry record, which was $500 million for Grand Theft Auto 4. And the projected numbers for Modern Warfare 2 being 11.1 million is far enough. If the game continues on its track record, it's going to go far and beyond the previous record being GTA, which has only sold 13 million. I mean, only sold 13 million since it was released in 2008.
A disappointing 13 million.
Yeah.
Shame on
Something
them.
Rockstar needs to work on for the next one.
I guess the one thing is, can it maintain the pace? I mean,
No.
It blew up on the first day. It seems to be strong. I mean, how many people are on the fence at this point? Going like, I don't know, maybe. I mean, it is kind of a cultural phenomenon, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be able to keep the pace, obviously. I mean, games traditionally are always front-loaded, but what Activision has been able to capitalize on really well with this series, looking at World of War, the original Modern Warfare didn't have really extensive downloadable content support going far after the release. World of War did, and each of those download packs sold over 1 million each. And I think we're going to see that really exploited with Modern Warfare 2. So I think, yeah, we're going to see those taper off, but we're going to see big numbers for all the expansions.
And we're not going to see them on the used shelves because of the DLC, I think.
Yeah,
right?
they've already come out and said that they're already looking at monetizing the online persistence of Call of Duty.
And it was I think the Modern Warfare 2 first downloadable pack was like already teased on some sort of Monster energy drink.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a 4-pack
Really?
that I've had, you know, for the past month by my
Mine got
desk.
drank by everybody.
It's I just look
People
at
actually
them.
drank it?
Yeah.
Any good?
Those went real fast. I think they tasted like Monster energy drink if
All right.
you like Monster
Enough
energy
said.
drink.
Now, Abby, independent of the game's quality, which I think is not a point of dispute with anybody in this room, but in terms of the amount of people that bought this game, is this really because of the game's quality, or is this kind of like almost like a Roland Emmerich movie where like it's just so big that no one wants to be kind of left out in the cold?
I think there's a degree of that. But also, I mean, it's the multiplayer. It's that is where everybody is. And if you go on, especially on 360, if you go down your friends list, it's Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare, Borderlands, Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare. But when you start to see that, I mean, originally when Call of Duty 4 came out, I was playing Team Fortress 2. And then there came to such a point where I was the only one playing that on my friends list. And I got sucked into Call of Duty 4 just because everybody else had it and I wanted to play with them.
Now, in terms of the multiplayer, I think one thing, and I will put myself in that group, that sometimes I'm apprehensive about just jumping in a match because it became sort of notorious how many good people there were out there playing the game that was somewhat prohibitive, where you couldn't even get your bearings before you had a bullet to the head. With this many people playing it, do you think it's going to stay a little more balanced in terms of the skill levels?
Yeah, I mean, but people learn quickly. Yeah, I think you might have a chance if you go on right now. I've been running into the kind of veteran clans and also just people who I can tell probably have never played the game before.
The nice part
Call of
is
Duty
you do earn points for dying in Modern Warfare 2, which
Sure,
I'm
and there's
extremely
death streaks,
thankful
too.
for.
Thank you.
because for the couple of minutes I did put into multiplayer, and I do want to get back to it, but like I was thankful that I was able to level up even though I had achieved no kills.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I started playing on the PC just for like an hour, and I almost got to the point where my spirit was totally broken, and then I got the death streaks, which kind of kept me into it. And then the next 2 or 3 games, I found my groove again. So.
I think that's a new kind of badge, you know, broken spirit.
Yeah.
You just get rooted too many times. Patrick, there is some other stuff involving Modern Warfare 2 in terms of the game in Russia. Obviously, Russia, not the good guys.
Yeah,
in the game.
not so much in Modern Warfare 2. And the initial report, that was just it turns out to be kind of just badly translated from some third world blogs, were just that Russia had banned the game from shelves or pulled the game from shelves. But as it turns out, Activision has released Modern Warfare 2 in Russia. They just Russia doesn't have like an actual ESRB or any sort of rating system. That's why partially why piracy is so rampant in Russia. But they sought legal counsel, them being Activision, and decided to remove the
No Russian.
the no Russian segment from the game. It's not even there. You can't access it if you want to. But they have released the game there. That sort of throws off the context of that game.
Yeah, I was going to say you have a lot of really confused Russian players.
Is there like
"What?"
maybe there's a text bubble that comes up that explains that?
They're just like, oh, we invade America. So that's a terrible Russian
Meanwhile,
accent. I can't
in
do it.
America,
Wow.
Also, hacked versions of the game.
Yeah, one of the big controversies before the game was released was there was no dedicated service for the PC version. So naturally, the first thing that people did once they got access to the PC version was create dedicated servers. They managed to get into one of the things that people were also upset that Infinity Ward removed was the console, which is something you can pull up usually traditionally with the tilde that lets you access different hacks to the game, and people were able to find that in the PC version. It was just kind of tucked away. So people were able to create dedicated servers through the developer console, and then because I don't know if N84 had planned for it or what the deal was, but at least when the first hack dedicated servers went up, they were recognized as legitimate servers by Infinity Ward that were susceptible to hacks. So people were cheating and getting their rankings and stats put onto IWNet legitimately because IWNet, as it stood, couldn't recognize the hacked ones from the non-hacked ones.
This just, I don't know. These hackers are getting to sound like like Irish travelers or something like that. They just kind of go around, find a way, complain about stuff, fix it all for themselves, and then sort of move on to another game.
Well, I mean, one of the I don't know if you guys saw the screenshot that went around that was actually kind of telling about how upset gamers acted about how the treatment of the PC version. And so there was a Steam boycott group that was gamers boycotting Modern Warfare 2. And so someone went in the day that Modern Warfare 2 was released to see, persistently Steam tracks what game you're playing at the moment. And about 90% of the people that said they were boycotting Modern Warfare 2 were playing Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, all
But at the
sound
same-
and fury signifying.
Nothing.
Why publishers don't take you seriously when you do internet boycotts.
Yeah, I mean, boycott actually means you don't do something. Like, I'm not buying grapes. Cesar Chavez told me to. This. Anyway, I've done that soapbox. I'm going to have my Twitter account completely blowing up right now. I do want to, there's a comment also, I think it's worth discussing, from Haas70. To be fair, in the comparison with Guitar Hero 3 or GH3, yeah, I guess that's Guitar Hero 3.
yes.
Yeah. Modern Warfare 2 did come with, I think, 3 different editions, maybe more, with the most expensive topping out at around $150. So it's got that going for it too, which is nice. I guess he's trying to put in perspective, these numbers of the sales. I think given those prestige editions and the special Xbox 360, I think that would be a drop in the bucket in $550 million.
Probably, I mean, because what he's pointing to is that Activision had previously bragged about Guitar Hero 3 reaching 1 billion sales ever in video games first, and that was largely attributed to because when you buy Guitar Hero, you are buying a bundle. Especially, that's much more common with Guitar Hero than with Modern Warfare or other just kind of retail games.
and there's way more DLC associated with the music games.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think, but it is still an important milestone, but it is kind of funny that it's like just 50 million more than Grand Theft Auto, just like a little dig ahead of them.
Also, Abby, I know you have some of the night vision goggles. I mean, has anyone come up with any ideas about maybe having night vision parties now that I think there are enough people, at least that we know?
Night
Well,
vision
you have
parties?
to
That
keep in
sounds-
mind
that sounds pretty
that-
creepy.
but you
I don't
have
know if
keep
I
in
want to
mind
go to
too,
one.
Adam, that you don't have much peripheral vision or much in the way of being able to see what's below you.
Well, you also
anywhere
don't know
else.
your range is actually here. That's
So
how
you'd
big
have-
you are
You
now.
have a lot of people in a room walking into each other.
I'm sure
and
you
falling
can find a
down.
party
It would
like
be
this on
hilarious.
Craigslist.
Yeah,
maybe.
I bet you can. It's
Sexy night vision party.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Why does it
better-
have to be sexy?
It
should
wouldn't
be a regular
without
night
the
vision
injuries.
party.
You know what? It's still got to have more dignity than nitrous-filled balloons in college. That's all I have to say. Moving on to our second story, and unfortunately, this is not a happy story whatsoever.
No, Pandemic Studios is long rumored to be running into some trouble. They haven't really been able to find a real genuine hit after the original Mercenaries. They had some success with the Battlefront series, but we've been hearing they're going to run into trouble, and as a result of EA's 1,500 person restructuring that they're doing as of by next March, that Pandemic was one of the companies hit by that, and they're laying off over 200 employees. Their Australian office went under a while ago, but now Pandemic proper. I think they're located over in Beverly Hills.
It's
Yeah, right down
it's
the
Westwood,
street.
the old
In Westwood.
Monty's building
Westwood.
that also had Interscope Records, where I used to see Suge Knight when I was in college. I'm just going to throw that out there.
And aside,
I didn't know it was Suge Knight at the time. I just knew there was this really scary dude that kept on walking into Monty's. So anyway, that back to what you were talking about, Patrick.
flashback. So Pandemic technically is no more, but a certain amount of people, we don't know how many, probably not very many, are being brought into the EA Games label, the EA LA label, and the Pandemic brand actually is supposed to live on. Apparently, EA has promised that they're going to produce new games based on existing Pandemic franchises, which they did with an S, even though, as far as I'm aware, they only have one, which would be Mercenaries, unless they're already considering Saboteur 2, but that seems a little premature.
I think it would. Although we just had Saboteur on last week, and I think we all were kind of like, hold on, this game actually really has something going for it. That I think we were all a little bit rubbed raw by Mercenaries too, but there seems to be some polishing, unique stuff that's going with Saboteur. I don't think that would have ever saved Pandemic if it had come out a little bit earlier, but hopefully there is a brand there. I guess is this the end of all the stuff that's going to happen inside of EA, or does it feel like there's more to come, Patrick?
I mean, it sounds like there. I mean, we haven't had official tally of what's happened to the the Command and Conquer team, but most of the executive staff at Command and Conquer has already been let go as a result of that game being nearly finished in time before its March release date. And it sounds like that. Actually, in the Pandemic Studios memo, EA noted that it sounds like Command and Conquer is going in a digital-only direction with the future. It sounds like it might be some sort of online persistent thing that Activision has talked about doing. With
Not digital distribution.
no, some sort of digital-only. I don't know, online persistence. Like some. They probably
Like what
want
they're doing with the Battlefield model, maybe?
Yeah, it sounds like they kind of want to pull it back from being a retail box product as opposed to something they can monetize on a regular basis, which they did play with Battlefield Heroes, but we haven't really heard whether that was a success or not ever since it launched.
No.
Yes, it's made no dollars because it's free. We also have a comment on Pandemic here from the Big Fat Cow. Good one. Pandemic was great from 1998 to 2005. They made some of my most favorite games: Destroy All Humans, Mercenary, Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. Then EA bought them, and their quality crashed, just like what happens with all of EA's companies they buy, excluding BioWare. This saddens me that such a once great developer is gone. However, it makes me happy that EA is putting them out of their misery due to their recent not great games. Hopefully they can be remembered for all the great games they made. The one that I think that was forgotten here by the Big Fat Cow is actually the game that gave them the first notice, which was Battlezone 2, which was this kind of out of nowhere PC game that was like, wow, that's really, really cool.
I'd throw in Full Spectrum Warrior as well.
That's true.
That was
which was
enjoyable.
THQ published that one. I think this is fitting into kind of the more storied history of EA, the acquisition of Bullfrog, the acquisition of Westwood, that there are all these great, more independent developers that went inside of LA, and then everything seemed to just slowly collapse for them. Is it fair to read it in that context?
I don't think so. I think Pandemic was having real problems before this whole went down. From the beginning, when BioWare and Pandemic were teaming up, I always thought that was kind of an odd partnership in the first place. And when EA eventually acquired that from Elevation Partners, I thought that was pretty much just, well, we're buying BioWare and we're bringing Pandemic along for the ride. So Pandemic, I mean, Mercenaries 2 was having issues long before that was an EA game. Like, I remember seeing that years and years ago, and that game is just, if you've heard about the struggles that Pandemic has had, a lot of it is management based, a lot of it is producer based, and that's not an EA thing. Pandemic has just struggled to get anything off the ground post Mercenaries 1, and it's just been systemic across the studio, and just Mercenaries 2 wasn't the hit they were looking for, and so...
And Lord of the Rings Conquest was.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also-
Kind of forget that they made that game.
Yeah.
Well, that had an unfortunate January release date of this year, which kind of did, sort of tell us what it was going to be like. Also, the Australian studio in Brisbane, they were the ones that were working on the long
gestating
Batman game
Dark
that
Knight
never,
game,
I
yeah.
mean, there was a lot of money thrown at something that never saw the light of day, which I think that could have been really the crux of a lot of their losses.
Just a lot of stuff added up, and a lot of poor decisions were made. And unfortunately, in this economy, it's hard to take a gamble, especially with someone like EA who's looking to restructure.
Yeah, and I got to say, quality of games notwithstanding, I love those guys. They're great guys. They are local. We see a lot of them, and I do wish all of them the best, and they can come by anytime. It's an open invitation. Okay, let's go from the news to the two big games that released this week. The end, yay! It's the beginning of the end of the holiday season, which means that we just have to finish playing them for Game of the Year decisions.
Oh, yeah.
these
Game of the Year.
77 games I haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah,
Only 7.
And the first one we're going to start with is the one that I think for all of us is It's a big game, and it's going to it's the one's like, okay, how do we get around this so we can get this done? And that's Assassin's Creed 2, which is the follow up to a game that came out 2 years ago, which I think all of us were very excited about the game, but I think there's a lot of speculation as to how it would actually resonate with gamers out there, because the original Assassin's Creed took place in the Crusades. It had a very adult, not in content, but adult in the nature of the storytelling. Mm-hmm. It goes on to sell 8 million copies, which breaks records for what an initial IP could actually do. And so I think there's been a lot of expectation about Assassin's Creed 2. And Andrew, you did the review. What was the kind of the general bird's eye view of the game for you?
I was one of the people on the other side of the fence on Assassin's Creed. I didn't like it all that much. The problems really, really got to me. The repetitive structure. I love the setting. I love like the Middle East, the Crusades. I love the future sci-fi story going on with it. So I knew that Assassin's Creed 2, they had a lot of room to grow, and they did. They changed the structure. They listened to all of the feedback that they got from the criticisms, which I'm surprised they were so open about it, because in leading up to it, they even said at one of the events, like, this is kind of the game that we wanted to make in the first place for the first one. So and it really shows.
I think also I loved how Patrice described that the problem with the first one is that they just telegraphed the structure of the game from the very beginning. And so there was not that sense of surprise. And I think
the progression in the first game was lacking, whereas the progression really comes through in the second one. Like the story of Ezio, it's a very straightforward, like, revenge story. Like, something happened to your family, I'm going to kill the people responsible. But while this is happening, it's kind of building up with the present day sci-fi stuff, and it crosses very rarely in the game until the end, and it just goes crazy.
It goes higgledy-piggledy.
Yeah.
We can't give that away. But I just finished it this morning. I just finished it this morning, and yes, it definitely is like, oh, this is about to get very, very interesting for the next one. The setting of Rome, I was somewhat excited about it and a little bit apprehensive, because I think the Crusades has that.
You mean Italy in general, or
Italy in general? Yeah. Sorry, Rome. Yes. Rome is not the. Yeah, it takes place primarily in Florence and Venice. That it's almost too familiar. You know, if you've been an English major, you've seen all those paintings in the Uffizi by reading your Penguin Classics. I didn't know if it would have that kind of strange sense of mystery that the Middle East and the Crusades era did. I found that it actually did work very well. I mean, Abby, you've been playing some of it. I mean, how is Italy resonating with you?
I actually have been really enjoying it. I don't. Oh, sorry. I'm just kicking everything.
You don't need to apologize to the mic.
It's been a long day. Actually, I've been really enjoying the setting. I think for the control in the game so far, it's worked really well. I've been enjoying exploring a lot more. I kind of took a very linear path in the first one. I guess that's kind of what you had to do. And but I stopped playing, and not that far into the game the first time around. And now with this one, even though it's not kind of the game that I play normally, I've been enjoying the hell out of myself, and I've actually been, keeping wanting to sit down and going further and exploring more of the story, and I've gotten really. I enjoy all the characters. I enjoy the setting, and I think I am actually going to play this one through to the end.
Yeah, they did a really good job of establishing like the whole Patsy conspiracy at the beginning, and then as you're going along, they do a good job of telling you who's involved in what way, who's related to who. In the menu screen, there's like a little map of how everything's connected and shows you who you've killed so far. And there's really good descriptions of all these characters and how they relate.
Every time you run into someone, it gives you the prompt to go learn more about them. And there's a lot of
and
actual historical
tie-ins,
which I find fascinating because I like that kind of stuff.
One thing that, I guess I had never fully appreciated, I think I had been taught this but never kind of paid attention to it because it was never given to me in game form, is that unlike France and obviously England, that really Italy during that time period was just an absolute mess. There was no Italy proper. People spoke Italian, but you had these kind of like city empires,
city states
that were just sort of warring with one another, and you really get this wonderful sense of just how it's funny. We say how unstable it was back then, and then you just look at the government now in Italy, and like it's Berlusconi, and like. I mean, I think there were less open affairs back then. That's the one thing I can say for Renaissance Italian politics. Patrick, in terms of Italy, in terms of the setting, how did you feel about the first Assassin's Creed?
Well, that'd be difficult considering I didn't play it.
I did not play the first one.
I was one of those people that heard enough of the bad feedback that, as opposed to jumping in and playing a couple hours, disliking it, and just putting it down, I just didn't play it at all. But With this one, it seems like all the things that knew I would find so annoying that it just wasn't worth my time to play. I do really, really, really want to play this one. So I guess one of the things I would put to both of you, considering you've played pretty far into it and have played the original, like, what am I missing? What do I need to do? Do I need to go? I vaguely know the ending from seeing it on YouTube. Like, how much am I going to lose by not having played the first one? Because I think there are going to be a lot of people that are like Abby and I that thought about playing the first one or didn't play it or gave it up, but want to play the sequel.
I think you need to know the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Of the first game, because one of the things that I was wrong with that structure I found in the first Assassin's Creed is what I think was wrong with last year's Prince of Persia, is that this kind of do it in your own way, and so you get these kind of puzzle pieces of narrative, but they have to be ones that can stand on their own, independent of when you actually reach them. And so there's real no sense of thrust to the story. So the only thing that's kind of, very linear is the beginning of Assassin's Creed 1 and the end of Assassin's Creed 1. The end being significantly more important because it does set up the rather remarkable philosophical position that the game seems to be taking in terms of religion and the existence of God.
And you'll be confused for just a few minutes having not played through the first one, but I think they also make it very easy to kind of understand where the story is going and where it came from.
I think they
from
were
the beginning
sensitive
of the
to
game.
that.
I think so too.
Now, Andrew, you also did find some problems with the game.
Yeah,
and they're ones that over time I began to realize I very much share with you, but if you would go ahead and articulate
a lot of
those.
it just has to do with the free running. I mean, that's the big draw of the game, is to be able to run and climb anywhere you want and to blend in and to jump rooftop to rooftop. The problem is that Ezio, I've been describing it as he's really sticky. So like if you're on a race or something, or if you're running away from guards and you're sprinting, that's also your free run button. So if you get even close to something that might be grabbable or jumpable, he'll go to it, even if you don't want to. And then you'll just kind of hang there while the guys catch up with you and start stabbing you from behind, or you make bad jumps or something like that. And we're trying to figure out if that was like that in the first game or not, and something to do with the architecture in this game, like the rooftops were just slanted wrong, or there's a lot of stuff jutting up. Yeah, and there's a lot of places you can go, which is good, but also bad in that respect.
I mean, I do think the geometry of the Middle Eastern buildings that were far more angular, just kind of simple right angles, it was easy to sort of read the ground up in front of you, and it didn't give you those obstacles to connect with. And I know that some people out there have been trying to say that you're being nitpicky about it, but it does have an impact in terms of that sense of flow for the game. I found.
At the beginning, it might be nitpicky, but it doesn't really get better, and in some cases, it gets worse.
This game is really long.
Yeah,
too.
it's
You
like
put like some
hours
22 hours into it?
22, 23 hours, and it just keeps building up, where near the end of the game, like, I don't really want to go up to the roofs this time. I'll just run through the streets, because I'll probably get there faster, and I won't like fall or grab something I don't intend to.
See, I had when I first started, and then I realized that I had just started. I was coming off the game having just played Uncharted.
That's
2.
the other thing.
Yeah.
I have where I really do. I tend to mash that X button to keep myself propelling forward. Assassin's Creed 2 is a lot more precise.
Yes.
You have to be watching those buttons to know. Okay, now it's A. Now I'm holding this. And there's been so many games that have come out this year. I know we were Prototype, Infamous, Uncharted 2, and Assassin's Creed that have a very similar, jumping up buildings and control. That my brain has kind of mixed everything together.
Yeah.
And then having Assassin's Creed 2 at the end of the year, I had to kind of step back and reteach myself those controls to be able to do it really well. And I haven't had a problem yet. But that's also, I've also haven't gotten as far, and I haven't gotten to Venice and places where you said that you had more problems.
And then also with Uncharted, the platforming, and especially when you're scaling things, it's very linear. Like the reason you can mash X is because you don't have options. And
I throw that in there only because it still has there's still very similar control elements. And
we also just played it. Like that's the thing. That's what we've all just been trained on.
The one thing that Assassin's Creed actually does way better than it is the animation when you get on ladders. It's a lot easier to kind of lock on and climb up than it is in Uncharted.
I'm very glad you bring that up because once again,
love to talk about ladders.
No. It sounds like a nitpicky, affirmation of the game. But I think one of the issues that I found, and I think this is why also later in the game it became more onerous to me, is that I want to have Ezio be this badass. and to constantly kind of run into these kind of, I'm just hanging off of a ledge and I somehow just can't get him to go back up again. It does start to wear, and it kind of takes you away from that power fantasy that really is at the core. And I think, once again, free running games, when you're looking at Infamous, when you're looking at Prototype, since you can do these superhuman things, it really is based on this power fantasy. And I think it creates this larger onus on the developers to have to execute it, more efficiently than, say, some other types of games. I'm going to read from Nerdy Girl 92 with regard to Assassin's Creed 2. That the sequel achieves what Assassin's Creed tried to accomplish. Granted, there were still moments of frustration in terms of running and sprinting along rooftops, and Ezio's obsession to latch onto anything that even kind of looks like he can climb it. But those moments were so few and far between, it really didn't deter me from enjoying the overall experience.
And that's the important point. Like, we're complaining about it a lot, but I still wanted to keep going through the game. My motivation was never broken. I just wanted to keep going. You just had to deal with it.
It is. I think this cuts to the core of. Once again, with the Uncharted example, Uncharted, I think it was a very ambitious game, but in terms of what they were going to have you do as a character, it was narrow. You were going to go through the course of the story, and when you look at Assassin's Creed 2, where it's so broad and what they're allowing you to do is so dynamic, that does, just by the nature of it, invite there to be quirks and flaws and glitches here and there.
Whenever a game, I mean, you can tell what the focus kind of a game is and where they really put all of their effort. And so it's like, do the graphics in Assassin's Creed look as good as they do in Uncharted 2? No. But at the same time, does Uncharted 2 attempt to do the same things that Assassin's Creed 2 does in terms of an open world? No. So it's kind of, you can focus your efforts on kind of one area of the game that turns out absolutely amazing and superb, and sometimes other things maybe not suffer. Maybe there just isn't even room or time or anything to do that.
Yeah, they made this game in 18 months, which is remarkable.
Yeah.
Considering
that was a little head scratching to me.
Considering so many people's problems with the first one were just like fundamental structural issues, the fact that they were able to turn this around in 18 months and it be so strong is such a testament to that team.
Also, there is detail in this game that is just absolutely astonishing. There was a sense of, like, if you were to break up those, like, Acre and some of those in Jerusalem in AC1, that's like, yeah, I can see how they might have just kind of shifted this district that way and then plopped it right there. Here, I started to really recognize areas that were in Florence and Venice, and just for that to happen without those same type of typical landmarks as in GTA 4, I think was an absolute accomplishment.
Are you ready to play without the HUD on?
in Assassin's Creed?
Oh yeah.
No.
Do I have to? Do I need the Italian voiceovers on too?
Oh yeah.
I like that, the raw experience. It's like it's like the realism mode for Assassin's Creed 2. You got to know Italian and you got to know the geography it was 400 years ago.
No thanks.
So I think at the end of the day, I don't want to speak for you there, Andrew, but that for all the good this game has, even those who didn't even like Assassin's Creed 1 really should consider giving this one a shot.
I'll put my stamp on that.
Yeah, it's definitely it stands out also in a unique way from a lot of the other games out there in terms of what it's doing and how it executes and how mature the story is. And once again, mature as in I don't feel talked down to at all. Yeah. I mean, it really is an adult story. Switching gears to
Zombies.
Yes, a game that
I thought realism mode was going to be your transition.
I know, I saw that there, and then I wanted to throw out the kudos for the story. All right. Is there a way to unding me on segues or something right here? It's like, bleh. So Left 4 Dead 2, about as different from Assassin's Creed as a game could be. Yeah. At least an M-rated game. And so I think it's good that the two of them came out on the same day. I think, that they're not
very
competing.
different flavors.
Yeah. Patrick, you reviewed the game. Just kind of give us that bird's eye view on that.
Yeah, I did, and I loved the game. Like I was not skeptical that Valve was going to be able to turn around this game in a year because it's Valve. One of the lines in my review is "In Valve we trust." Like, there's a reason you trust Valve because they can do things like this. But I was still surprised at how much they packed into the game. Like, what seemed like would have been simple things like the addition of melee combat. I didn't expect that was going to become essentially my primary means of attacking in the sequel, and that the melee combat completely changes how I've played the game. And that was not something that I figured would be such an important role, but really melee changes the way you do crowd control. Crowd control in the original Left 4 Dead was primarily handled through the pushback button, so you could kind of control the zombies and when the horde was attacking you. But in the sequel, melee just that eliminates that because not only can you control the zombies, but you can also dismember them at the same time. And that's just not something I think that I was expecting for Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah. And the reason I was so skeptical about the melee weapons at first is because in older builds of the game, you would have to swap out your primary weapon in order to pick up a melee weapon. And it made a huge...
I was not aware of that.
It made a huge difference to me because I kind of remembered that from playing it earlier. And that made a huge difference because that made me not really want to pick up a melee weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I always
Kelly
fear
Doom
because of
3.
Special Infected, I always feel, I need to have my gun with me.
Yeah.
So
I was scared at the beginning of Dead Center when all you had was the melee weapon. Like, I want a gun and a sword.
And then you
or a
realize
bat.
that you can whack like 30
Yeah.
zombies' heads off at once with it. Oh, yeah.
Now, the AI director was something else that really stood out for you, particularly in the Hard Rain.
Well, the thing is that the AI director doesn't stick out as much, which is why one of the reasons I think Left 4 Dead 2 is really interesting. The AI director was such a star of the first game. You were always watching, what is he going to do next? How is he going to change this level? Which area is he going to funnel zombies through? In this one, the level design seemed to make really conscious decisions on Valve's part to sort of hive what his role is. You don't really know what the director is doing because you can move around a little more. The levels are a little more expansive. They're still extremely linear, but you feel like they give you a little more options. And so it kind of hides what the director is doing. And they've also given the director much more interesting roles this round. Like I've talked a lot about Hard Rain, which is the highlight of Left 4 Dead 2. It's the most interesting campaign and best highlights why picking the South was such an interesting setting for Left 4 Dead 2, even though I think all of us thought that may not have worked at first. It's actually proved really, really interesting. And in Hard Rain, the AI director has control over essentially what is like a mini hurricane that floats in and out of the level. And there'll be times where you're running through, there's no zombies, but then all of a sudden this intense, violent lightning and thunder and wind. And even though they're using this source engine, which is in need of an overhaul, but what they have done with this is just so visceral. And then to have done, like, it's just such a testament to Valve because it gets your heart pounding. And this is in the middle of a multiplayer game with 3 other people. And usually when I'm playing with other people, I'm so oblivious to actual tension because I'm focused on, my teammates and talking to people that when I hear someone's real voice, it completely takes me out of the game. But in Hard Rain, several times, the moment that hurricane picks up, it is so loud and so violent that you're all just like, run, get the hell out, like try and find some submerged house so you can hide out because the horde is coming. And the fog of war then envelops you. You can barely see anything. It's just so impressive. And that's such a high point for the game, which is why the low points in the campaign stuck out a little bit more, just because Hard Rain is just beyond anything in Left 4 Dead 1 or the rest of Left 4 Dead 2.
On the source engine note, though, I think it has to be pointed out that the graphics in this game, and especially if you play on PC, are just loads better than they were in the first one. They've actually done a really amazing overhaul to the source engine. And again, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, Uncharted versus Assassins versus this, is that what you're trying to do in the game, is it possible to have the graphics look on par with other games that take a very linear and kind of narrow focus? When you have 100 or more zombies running at you on screen, it's a little more difficult.
Something's going to take a hit.
At the same time, I can shoot a zombie and see his intestines trail out behind him for like 30 feet while he's staggering at me. And whenever you throw the pipe bomb, you see every little chunk of zombie go up into the air. It's pretty impressive.
Am I crazy in thinking that the PC version actually, like the gore might actually be a little bit raised than with what we're seeing on the console versions?
Absolutely. No, the gore's raised in both from Left 4 Dead 1, but PC graphics tend to be better.
Because even though the source engine can't do as much as some of the other like modern crazy engines we're talking about, the resolution helps a lot with Left 4 Dead because the texture work is so well done by Valve that just by being able to run it in a much higher resolution than what's capable on our HD televisions, it scales much better and looks a lot better, even if the engine isn't quite there.
And Valve makes, at least up until now, they really make PC engines. Back when Half-Life 2 came out, there was still a little bit more of a viable PC gaming world out there.
Sure. And Half-Life 2 played a lot better on PC. I played it on PC and Xbox.
And
it's still the case for Left 4 Dead 2. The frame rate does chug. If you get a particular large horde and you throw down a pipe bomb when they all gather and explode, it will go, but for the most part, it works just fine. But yeah, this is a game that even though I primarily played on 360, I would still recommend if you can get it on PC, that is the place to play it, especially because the DLC will probably be free.
CMD Luke has a comment, and he goes, "You are correct." I assume he's talking to you with that, Patrick.
Thank you.
But I'm going to pretend it's me, even though I haven't made any comments. The game is fun until you play through it once, then it got boring to me. After playing all the levels, good thing about it was playing as the infected, but then you have to play as the survivors again until it's your turn to play infected again. All right, this is quite the run-on sentence that we have here.
I didn't edit
you
that
don't
one.
quite understand.
What we're going to take out of this, it's funny because you see this a lot where I believe this game is being sold as the multiplayer game that it is, that
Yes.
it is about the replayability and getting better at it with your friends. Yet I think CMD Luke here seems to just sort of see it as, all right, I've seen all that there is to see that first time through. There's nothing more to be gleaned. Is this an education problem?
Well, it's not understanding the director and the fact that your experience will change. I mean, that hurricane that you were talking about, I've had that hit me in several different parts of the map, whether I was in versus or just playing single player. Or just playing with other people online. And clearly it's a multiplayer game. And you'll never get the same experience playing through like any multiplayer game. Not every match is the same. And the way it plays out, the scavenge mode is really impressive. You're missing pretty much all of it if you don't take this game online.
And see, but I will to one of his points is that and what's so impressive about the new scavenge mode, which scavenge mode essentially is you are collecting gas cans, and it's kind of like a concentrated version of the versus mode as opposed to versus where you're following a team as it attempts to go through the whole map. Now it's just a very tiny map, and you're grabbing gas cans and trying to keep this generator going. The reason scavenge mode is my favorite mode, and it doesn't make versus irrelevant, but to me it almost does, because my favorite part is being the infected, and it is fun to be the survivors, but only for a brief period of time. I just like being more of a dick as the infected, and scavenge mode goes so quickly. The matches only last if you're really good, it can last like less than a minute. It can go on for a little bit longer, but you get to go back and forth much faster. And I think part of his comment comes to that is like, yeah, it's not as fun to be the survivors because you get to be more of a dick when you're the infected, and that is you get to do that more often when you play scavenge mode.
I just want that on your business card. Patrick Klepek wants to be a dick.
Well, and the other, I mean, the reason that the versus mode doesn't, I love versus mode. And the reason for it is because I get that exploration of the maps that I wouldn't normally get. When I was playing Left 4 Dead 1, I would see people going a way that I didn't even know that you could go. And that was maybe months after the game came out. And they've really built these incredibly complex and really interesting maps. And to see the way that people get around it and how they kind of fight through, and then where some places where the zombies hide is this incredible learning experience and ramping up your ability at the game. And so if I want to sit down for a couple hours, I will play versus. For my quick fix is my scavenge.
Actually, that is the second part of CMD Luke. This is an interesting issue that is by no means unique to Left 4 Dead. He's saying here, 2 hours to play through in versus mode. The campaign should be 2 or 3 levels tops. Makes it very difficult to just pick up and play for 20 to 30 minutes.
Sure. And that's why scavenge is there.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is like that weird zone. When we have co-op games, you think multiplayer, I can go in, play 2 rounds. I can go make dinner now. That co-op, and this is one of the issues I have just for any co-op game, is that I don't want to screw my friends over if I suddenly have to back out
Right.
after just jumping in. I don't think there's any resolution.
The most extreme example of that is like a raid in World of Warcraft, where you have to set aside between 2 to 6 hours every other day and have a schedule for it. Like, if you want this action, you're going to have to look at it in different modes, like scavenge. You can't just sit for 20 minutes in a campaign, or you can play maybe a chapter of the campaign and then just kind of move on to something else, or attack it by chapter.
Redefining how we look, because I'll sit down and play a single player game for 6 hours at a time and not think twice about it.
But you can hit pause comfortably, and get distracted and come back.
It's how
we can also sit
segmented.
in the safe room and take a 5-minute break or what. I mean,
Left 4 Dead will, if someone drops out, will immediately replace it with an AI person.
That is true.
It's not like the game just drops out if someone decides and also if someone has to go to the bathroom, if they set their controller down, the AI will automatically take over after about 30 seconds, and then you just hit right trigger and you come back into the action.
AI is pretty good, except for mine like the startle, which is Ellis. And
wow, I've been reading this. It's Ellis.
It's always Ellis.
Coach is kind of a jerk too.
I love Coach. I just want to give him a hug. And but my problem too is that when you're playing with the AI, they don't pick up projectile weapons. So you've kind of screwed yourself out of having the boomer bile. You've screwed yourself out of having pipe bombs and Molotovs, and those come into play.
They love giving you health packs,
important.
though. They love
giving you health
packs
so fast. I mean, I usually don't
Coach.
want them to heal me because I have a plan for exactly when I'm going to heal, and I'm very methodical with it.
I'm not surprised at all.
It's very frustrating to me that they still don't pick up projectiles, and I don't know. I don't know if
I
they know when to
They're
throw 'em, but-
they're serviceable. Like they're not. If you have to play with like one AI character, it's fine. But like if you're thinking you're going to play through this game by yourself with 3 AI characters, you're missing out
I
on
played
so
the-
much
if
of
you
the
remember
point.
from the first one, I mean, they have dead good aim.
Yeah.
Oh, they
I mean,
take
they
care
will
of the
nail
special
zombie-
infected.
they-
Like
Yeah.
they're great for that.
I mean, on survival mode, I have never had a good game playing with friends as I had playing with the AI. I think I had like 11 minutes on one map, and I just played by
Wow.
myself with those guys. If
I-
I played with friends, two minutes.
I want to do just a little bit from our Bit EXE 440. I don't think we need to comment on this, but I think it's a great statement to the quality of the game. Pretty freaking awesome. Love the up difficulty, and I can't get enough of listening to Ellis talk. Hate jockeys with a passion, but they make it loads more fun. I really enjoy the settings, especially Dark Carnival, though that's only how far I am because I keep getting screwed over by tanks at the concert finale. Freaking out right now because I'm at school and I just want to get home and play some more. I think that's a statement to a good game that he's clearly not having the easiest of times and that is not deterring him in any way, and he's not learning at school right now because he's thinking about
Well,
the game.
all day yesterday at work, I just wanted to go home and play Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah,
See,
that's pretty
Gabe
much been the
Newell,
last 2
you
weeks
and all
here.
your people, you're bringing down productivity and education. So you might want to
Mission
work on that one because
successful.
you'll have to hire some new people at Valve one day. I want to move on to our. It's not related to the 2 games. Ooh, I just hit my mic.
We're just abusing
I
our mics
apologize to
today.
the mic.
Yes, our reader question of the week, and this is from Colonel Mustard. I can pronounce that because those are words that
Who's going
exist,
to
Fat
make the
cow.
first
and it's from
reference?
Clue.
The fat Colonel Mustard.
Colonel Mustard.
Who played Colonel Mustard in the movie? Was that Martin Mull?
Oh,
Yes, yes. I heard a yes in my ear.
When did that
It
movie
was
come
Martin
out?
Mull.
When did that movie come out?
I believe it was 1985.
I was born
Tim
in
Curry.
85.
Tim Curry. There's a lot of
really?
people.
Yeah.
I think Madeline Kahn was in it. Some people are dead. Everyone looks young in that.
I didn't mean to make you
I was
sad.
young. I'm now getting nostalgic. Okay, so this is what Colonel Mustard has to say, and it doesn't involve the candlestick. Why do you play games to the end? Is it the story, the sense of achievement? Why? I'm a story guy. Mediocre gameplay, but a killer story, and I'll be there to the end. I think this is one that we can all give our own answers for, because I think there's no consensus to a matter like this. Abby, we'll start with you.
sure. I play games to the end because I just wanted to read you like a summer essay. I agree. Mediocre gameplay and a killer story, and I will continue playing it. I mean, I've told you Uncharted 2 does not have some of my favorite gameplay sequences, especially when it comes to combat. But I love the story, and I'm going to stick with it. And so I agree with that one. The other, I'm a repetitive gamer. I like things that, like, especially because I'm a huge multiplayer. I will take more of the same usually, and I will complete things. Sometimes I will complete games out of anger. There was a couple games this year, like Matt Hazard, that maybe I played through just to show the game that I could damn beat it. And I was angry
And
the
you
whole
taught
time.
that game a lesson, spending all that time with it?
I will rage quit occasionally, but then I will come back and I will finish it because at that point it's me versus the game.
You know what? I swear to God, there are people that have dated me out of vengeance, and it should have been, ended within half a week, and it took an entire month for it to finally just wear itself to a bitter end.
Yeah, but with like a multiplayer game, I mean, aside from the reasons like built into Left 4 Dead or Modern Warfare that I will just continue to play, there's a sense of repetition to gaming for me that I enjoy. It's like why I will sit there and play Minesweeper over and over, like repetitively.
and it is true for
There's
any
that
2600
mechanical
game.
seeing this here, seeing this here, seeing this here, and then wanting to just be able to do that as quickly and as well as possible. Like 50 Cent was the game that I completed to like 1,000 gamer score this year, and really the mechanic of the game never really changes, but just trying to narrow down my score and see how quickly I could hit this. I love that.
I gotta say, cause and effect is a very, very sort of compelling neurological pleasure zone, and I think that's why the Atari worked. And I think most youngins today are like, "Wow, how could you have fun with that?" I hit a button and something happened on screen. That's all I needed.
Very compelling.
Andrew, why do you play games to the end?
Mostly because of the job. I like to be comprehensive about everything I see. I like to know what I'm talking about. Even if I don't like it, I'll try to keep going with it. And I respect your ability to come back after a rage quit, because usually when the controller gets thrown down,
Andrew has some serious rage quits.
I can see
I've
that.
seen them.
it's rare. But when it happens, it's
a little more
finite.
frequent than rare.
No, I haven't done it since Dark Athena, since Riddick this year,
Okay.
and I had to keep going in that one.
No, I could see rage quitting right when you get into the
my
second half of the
God.
game.
Yes.
I wanted to rage quit about 30 times, and I think I did, and then kept coming back to it.
He's gonna rage quit this podcast.
Yeah. No.
I'm going down my mic. Here, there we go. Look at that. See, you had a touch of that.
That's kind of like how I am. But yeah, there's a lot of different elements to it. There's when a game's addictive with me, the same way with you. I keep going with it, like the Crackdown orbs. That stuff just speaks to me. Like I want to max out my character. I want to fully develop it, and it's stuff like that. And definitely story. If the story is good enough to keep me going, I will suffer through some not so great parts for it.
And Patrick.
I have like a serious issue with giving, like kind of like with Matt has where he just wanted to beat it, but with me it's like narrative. Like I've played all of the Kingdom Hearts games and I hate them. Like they're awful games, but I'll play every new one that comes out because I'm involved in the fiction. Like I do it with TV shows, I do it with books. I will read things to even after they've gotten to the point of just I'm recognizing like I don't enjoy this. I'm not enjoying this anymore. But I have this mental tick that I want to see how it finishes. Like I want to see it out to the end. And like on TV, like Prison Break, I watched 6 seasons of that piece of crap.
See, I'm with you on that, but only for movies because they're a lot shorter than everything else. So it's like if I'm invested in an hour of a movie and all right, this is bad, but I only have like 45 minutes left.
Wait, have you guys ever walked out of a movie?
Yes,
No.
many times.
See, yeah,
Never.
all you got to do is walk out that one time, and life gets so much easier the next time you buy a ticket to a crappy movie.
It does.
You
I
don't
never
know them
used to do
anything.
it.
I just gotta say,
Maybe if I
Transcendent.
just have not been able to learn how to just put it down. I've never just like put down a game in the last couple
well,
of
I've
years.
always liked, and of course, this is got the obscure reference counter at the end of Vladimir Nabokov's Invitation to a Beheading. The main character recognizes that he's in a story and things have gone wrong for him, and so he just leaves. Yeah. Anyway, it's one of those.
Wow.
You need that transcendence. It's like
Wow,
John
wow.
Dunn in The Fly. There, I just went ding 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 at the bottom.
Had to get that all in at the end there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just where are the references? Oh my God, I can't handle
we got
it.
an Adam flashback. We got an obscure reference.
That was a horde rush of references.
I think I'm in the Andrews camp where I primarily finish games because it's the job. I think ever so often I'm like, maybe it does get good here in the last hour, but
And it's not like a
the
dread,
case.
like sense of obligation part of the job. It's
Yeah.
like I want to know what I'm talking about.
But I
part of
do
the job.
like the sense. This is so sad that just that sense of accomplishment. I did something. I mean, I think everything else that I have in life, it's like I might think I've completed it, but there's always that nagging uncertainty that maybe I didn't do it right. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe I didn't pay attention. When a game is done, it's emphatic. It gives me credits. Except for Assassin's Creed 2. Do pay attention after the credits, because
Yes.
something does happen there. But it is that sense of, I accomplished this, I can at least check one thing off my board, go to bed, and then look at all the things I've yet to be done or discovered were done wrong the next day.
I beat Darkest of Days.
Let's just have a moment of
Really?
silence for that.
So it has an ending. You here can
Even
empirically...
getting past the part that automatically kills you. That it is the most infuriating thing I've ever encountered in a video game. I
Game of the
still
week
got
next week.
through.
Yes, Game of the
Yeah.
Week, where we learned that
Days.
Holocaust can be kind of fun.
Oh god.
We need that
yeah.
T-Rex Nazi mod on.
Oh, God, I want
yeah,
that so
Dino
bad.
D-Day.
Oh,
Dino D.
Dino
Yes,
D-Day.
yes, yes. Actually, for all of our viewers out there, go look up Dino D-Day for probably one of the best ideas for a mod in a long time.
them
Dinosaurs,
money.
and
World War
8-bit
II.
Left 4 Dead.
But with that, I want to thank all of our guests for what was a very comprehensive discussion of a lot of things going on. Patrick Klepek, Andrew Pfister, Abby Heppy. We are going to be back next week. We're going to be talking a little bit about the holidays and sort of holiday gaming tips, what you need to get for people over the Christmas or the Hanukkah or the Kwanzaa
It's hard
break.
to tell which holiday.
More
it
or
is.
less, if you guys have any questions that are relevant to matters such as that, please send them in. As you know, we're trying to actually respond to a lot of your queries more and more. This is a big opportunity. Throw it at us. We might not have an answer, but we'll really pretend like we do. This is Feedback. We'll see you next week.